Alright, so here we are again. That's a very bad glare, so I'll change that. We're continuing the, Alright, so here we are again. I'll exit that. Yeah, it's, I'll be honest, my life has been way more difficult than it usually is these past few days. So I'm, bear with me today. We are continuing. We finished the first verse of the Bhagavatam yesterday, which is exciting. Now we're on the second verse, another very important verse. These first three verses are very, very important, kind of set the foundation for what the Bhagavatam is, what the purpose is. This is part of Vedic compositions. There's usually this Mangalacharana verses that help set the foundation and offer glories to where they belong before really getting deep into the subject matter, but it actually completely summarizes the ultimate subject matter. So, well, without further ado, we will get into some praying, giving our hearts to the sources of knowledge, so that if we want to try and say, understand anything to do with this, that we ultimately have the blessings of the Guru Varga, the Supreme Lord, and the other seekers of truth. So without further ado, I will hand it. Parth, we didn't share the screen yesterday. We forgot that. But I will share it today.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shinvatam Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hyabhadrani Vidunoti Shrudim Satam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous, when properly heard and chanted. Astachayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. By regular attendance in the classes on Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Kada mahyam dadati swapadantikam deham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padagamanam Shri Guru Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunata sajivam Dvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Shakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishnapistaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
All right. So, again, bear with me. I have more emotional exhaustion these past 3 days than maybe ever in my life. So just bear with me, and we're gonna try to get through this second verse of the Bhagavatam, and it goes like so. Dharma projita kaitavo trapadamo nirmatsaranam satam.
Dharma projito kataivo praramo nirmatasranani satam.
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam.
Vidyam vastavam atra vastu sivadam tapatrayonumulam.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parerishvaraha.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parerishvara.
Sadyo Hridyavarudhyate Trikritibi Shushrushubi Tatkshana.
Sadyo Ridi Avarutyate Kritibi Shushrushvistatkashnat.
We did our best, both of us. Dharma, religiosity. Projita, completely rejected. Kaitava, covered by fruitive intention. That means covered by the intention to acquire fruits or gains. Atra, herein. Parama, the highest. Nirmatsaranam, of the 100% pure in heart. Satam, devotees. Vedyam, understandable. Vastavam, factual. Atra, herein. Vastu, substance. Shivadam, well-being. Tapa, tapatraya, threefold miseries. Unmulanam, causing uprooting of. Srimad, beautiful. Bhagavate, the Bhagavat Purana. Mahamuni, the great sage Vyasadeva. Krite, having compiled. Kim, what is. Va, the need. Parai, others. Ishvaraha, the Supreme Lord. Sadhyaha, at once, Hridi, within the heart, avarudhyate, become compact, atra, herein, kritibi, by the pious men, shushrushubhi, by culture, takshana, without delay. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. This is a really beautiful verse. This is like one of the best verses that I know of. Well, let's read the purport of Srila Prabhupada. It's a pretty good long purport. We may be able to get done today. Religion includes four primary subjects, namely pious activities, or proper blessed activities, economic development, developing your economic situation, properly gaining wealth, satisfaction of the senses, and finally liberation from material bondage. Irreligious life is a barbarous condition, like a savage, a barbarian. Look up barbarous for me. You have a phone here. Barbarous condition. Indeed, human life begins when religion begins. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating are the four principles of animal life. Interestingly enough, that's the main four principles of most of what's considered human life. But really, realistically, this is animal life. This is what animals do. These are common both to animals and to human beings, but religion is the extra function of the human being. Without religion, human life is no better than animal life. Therefore, in human societies, there is some form of religion which aims at self-realization and which makes reference to man's eternal relationship with God. In the lower stages of human civilization, there is always competition to lord it over the material nature, or in other words, there is a continuous rivalry to satisfy the senses. Driven by such consciousness, man turns to religion. He thus performs pious activities or religious functions in order to gain something material. But if such material gains are obtainable in other ways, then so-called religion is neglected. This is the situation in modern civilization. Man is thriving economically, so at present he is not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, or temples are now practically vacant. Men are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas than in religious places which were erected by their forefathers. This practically proves that religion is performed for some economic gains. Economic gains are needed for sense gratification. Often when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he takes to salvation and tries to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different types of sense gratification. So there's a good amount to unpack here. One, religion is the extra function of a human being. It's the only thing that distinguishes us from animal life. Actually, animals are much better. Like, for instance, a pig can have so much more enjoyment eating than we can. It could even eat poop and have a lot of enjoyment, where we would be disgusted. Sleeping, we can sleep nicely, but say a bear can sleep for months on end, and get much more enjoyment sleeping than we can. Fearing, defending, animals, or all kinds of different animals are equipped to defend and are acting out of fear. And we are also doing this. This is my house, this is my job, my career, my thing. Even myself, personally, I find myself in fear over the projects that I am hoping to achieve and things like this. It's natural for human and animal life. And then the last is mating. The sex impulse is what causes creation in this world, and ultimately it's driving humans and animals mad. But religion is the extra function of the human. And it's by religion that we can actually inquire, who am I? What is the purpose of life? Who is God? What is the relationship between me and the Supreme? Or even me and the cosmos, me and this world that I'm a part of. So it's talking about how, the proof that the churches are empty and the mosques are empty in comparison to the once was because people feel satisfied with the material things. They have enough money, they have enough sense gratification, they have enough. So they don't feel the need for religion. But actually, this is not the purpose of religion. It's not that you should go to religion only because you want something. And unfortunately, this is how I was taught religion. I was taught when I grow up. It was funny what the emphasis was, but it was really based around like sports in my life. Like here I am. You played cricket in your life? For us in America, we would never play cricket. And cricket is a nonsense game in America. And just like baseball is a nonsense game in India or Britain. But anyway, but we played baseball. And, I was taught to, to pray to get the results that I wanted in my baseball gaming. And so like this, I would go up to bat and I would do my ritual of the sign of the cross, which is my Christian upbringing. And I would pray for Jesus to give me the strength to succeed in my endeavors, like this. And there was many things like this. If I wanted a certain video game system, pray to Jesus that somehow it comes to you. And like this. But this is a nonsense form of religion. This is complete nonsense. So this verse actually challenges that directly. That we should not be praying to the Lord for some type of gains or fruits, especially of the temporary nature. So, it's pretty much Prabhupada is saying that what's driving even people's religion is they want stuff. They want sense gratification. But the problem is they don't even know who they are, and they don't even know what could really ever make them happy. But anyway, we'll continue to read. In the Vedas, the above-mentioned 4 activities are prescribed in the regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. So, religion is giving away, there are certain needs. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to mate, and you need to have a certain basic level and to defend those things. It's not that these are necessarily wrong activities, but they're not the highest activities. So religion gives you a regulated way. Like, for instance, the most religious way to mate is to marry. You get a marriage partner like this. So this is, and, there's often, in the Jewish tradition, there's kosher food. In the Islamic tradition, there's halal food. In the Vedic tradition, we only try to eat prasadam. So like that, there's ways to properly eat, sleep, mate, and defend in religion. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental, means it's above, transcendental, to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord, who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. Meaning, it's not about how much they acquire, how much sex life they get, how much this, that, or the other type of bodily sense gratification. It's for those pure in heart. In the material world, there is keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotees of the Lord rise above such competitions. We're supposed to, I've also seen otherwise. But to the extent that we're being devotees, we will rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialists, because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else. and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone. Oh, I was going to say, wait, we're not free of but the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, they are free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone. And they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. So that's a completely different type of paradigm than what's happening, especially you guys are in very competitive job markets and like this, and everything's about competition. But the pure devotees, they have no desire to win over someone else. It's actually a nonsense type of conception. Oh, I must, be better. And it can happen in so many ways, in so many places. I mean, we see this on social media. Actually, I'm in danger of this right now. If I become very self-righteous, look at this religious practice that we're doing. Just see how much, quote-unquote, better we are. Like this. This is so ingrained in us. But this is not what this tradition is about. This is not what Srimad Bhagavatam is propounding. So, in the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free, but they were a competitionless society with God in the center. The contemporary socialist conception of a competitionless society is artificial, because in the socialist state, there is competition for the post of dictator. We saw that's why a lot of socialist governments always fail, because the people who have to run the so-called socialist system end up, they compete for that post. And it's corrupt. From the point of view of the Vedas, or from the point of view of common human activities, sense gratification is the basis of material life. There are 3 paths mentioned in the Vedas. One involves fruitive activities to gain promotion to better planets. Like that means doing good works to get good karma, so you get a better situation. We often do this your mother might tell you, you got to work hard so that one day you have this, this, and this, and this. That's that exact thing. Another involves worshipping different demigods for promotion to the planets of the demigods. That's ritualistic worship. In India, in the Vedas, it's very popular. You worship the sun god and you get certain maybe health. You worship Lakshmi, you get money. You worship Ganesh, he gets rid of the obstacles to your desires, and so on. That's the sister, and the many different pagans have done similar things. And another involves realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him. This is realizing the nature of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Energy, and trying ultimately to merge or become one with him. So these are actually all Vedic paths. The impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. We're not trying to just merge into the energy of God. Even though some promote this as the highest, but this is definitely not the highest that the Vedas has to offer. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature. And above this, Param means supreme, and Atma is soul. The soul of all souls, the source of our consciousnesses. If we really trace in meditation how deep we are as a consciousness, we'll find that there's a source to our consciousness, and that there's a source to all sorts of consciousness, and it's a unified one being. This is called the Paramatma. And above this is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. That may be the Supreme Lord in his one of his absolute forms comes like Krishna or Ram, or some may even say like Jesus, or something like this. Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than impersonalist literatures and higher than the Jnana Kanda division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda division, and even higher than the Upasana Kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Karma Kanda, there is competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification. And there is similar competition in the Jnana Kanda and the Upasana Kanda. These are different sections of the Vedas. The Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. These would be the categories. We'll give you a total view of the ultimate truth and all the different categories of the ultimate truth and how that is spreading out into what you know as existence. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the same time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. This is what you were talking about the other day, the Sachintya Beta Beta Tattva. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly, did you look up that word, by the way? What is the word again? Barbarous.
Savagely cruel, exceedingly brutal, primitive and uncivilized.
Savagely cruel, that's what a barbarian. Okay. And now promulgates. Pro-M-U-L gates. So Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it just like explicitly explains or something like that.
Promote or make widely known.
Promote or make widely known. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with Janmadhyasya, which is found in the first verse of Bhagavatam we just read, the sutra. This knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculator's attempt to establish the energy as the absolute. Meaning that, this is a really good example that often devotees have given, and they've often, because sometimes you have preachers, they say, oh, it's all one, God is all one, anything you do is all right because it's all connected to God. And so you can tell that person, you said, okay, do you believe this? Do you believe what I just said? No, you don't believe me. Okay, so anyone online, maybe you believe what I just said. Everything is one, and anything that you do is equal. And so that's fine. For your next meal, instead of foraging in your pantry, go forage in the toilet. Find whatever you find there and put that on your plate. And tell me that it's all one. Tell me it's all one and that there's not a variety. Of course, nobody would do this, except maybe like a pig or a dog or something like this. But even though they'd much rather probably the nice home-cooked meal with nice ingredients than stool, it's not all one. There's different varieties. I'm looking at instruments right now. Only a very specific set of tuning can make an instrument play nicely, and anything else will not create such like that. So the energies of the Lord are different from the Supreme Lord. They're all connected. It's all from the Supreme Lord, but it's not all equal. It's not all any. You hear this a lot in kind of pop culture, New Age spirituality. All rivers lead to the same ocean, or all paths lead to the same destination. Maybe so, but one path might literally take you off a cliff. One path might, lead you to be mauled by wild animals. One path can get you caught in quicksand. There's so many, you hear all the time of people getting lost in forests and things like that. They didn't get the destination that they wanted. So we have to be so careful, and we should have a proper map. Or, some rivers lead to dead ends. We don't want to... we don't want to be foolish and equate, everything is equal. So this is popular in so-called New Age spirituality. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conceptions of monism, which thinking one is all one, and dualism, everything to be different, to be imperfect, because everything is one and different. Monism and dualism have a synthesis. Bhagavatam is propounding this. Development of this transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are: 1, those miseries which arise from the mind and body. So, depression, you got pinched, or right now my belly kind of hurts. I ate some cookies last night late, and it's actually making my belly hurt. Something like that, a toothache, so many things. These are one type of misery. 2, those miseries inflicted by other living beings. Maybe Parth were to strike me, maybe a mosquito bites me, something like that, or someone cuts me off in traffic or anything, or tries to sabotage me, something like that. And 3, those miseries arising from natural catastrophes over which one has no control, a volcano, a storm, a very cold climate, or something like this. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the Absolute Person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the Absolute, and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the Absolute. Meaning he knows that he is of the same nature of the Absolute, ultimately created by the Absolute, part of the Absolute, but known that I am the servant. That is my function. I am not the total Absolute. Anyone who is sane knows that they are not God. Like, they are not the total God. I mean, Prabhupada was kind of teasing at one time where there was a group of hippies where they were, they would sit on the top of the mountain and they felt that they were making the sunrise, that they were actually spinning the wheels of material existence, making day and night come. Everything is coming from them. It's just an ultimate narcissism. It's really all it is. Which is such a delusion. But if you were to take, an unfortunate situation, if someone were to shoot that person dead, the sun would still rise, the moon would still come, all the phases, it's not like, anything would stop. It's such a nonsense type of conception that yes, we are really God, and and even this idea of we doesn't exist. There's clearly a we. We have some existence. What is our role? To ultimately serve the Absolute. How to do that? That's what Srimad Bhagavatam is all about. The devotee is fully aware that he's one with the Absolute, and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the Absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the Lord of all he surveys, and therefore he was always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. Because you understand what's happening. You're no longer trying to compete. Like I'm learning this now. Well, I'll finish this sentence and I'll give some life example here. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there's no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. So if always being the mood of a servant, you can always be free, ultimately, from many miseries. Like for instance, if you know the one indifference of God in yourself, if the body is experiencing pain or mental agony or anything like that, if you know your position is beyond the body and that this is just the temporary energy of the Lord and that you yourself are of a different nature, actually, most pain is actually coming at the mental level. What's really, and it's so deeply rooted and connected. I know, yes, my body, I would feel pain if someone lopped off my wrist or something like that. But you'd be shocked at how this often happens if someone gets in a type of struggle. Due to the nature of the struggle, their adrenaline might be pumping, and they might not even feel pain that they don't feel until later. Due to the nature of the state of the mind, it's so engaged in the tussle, this happens if, say, someone gets in a fight or some danger happens. They don't feel pain. They might have a serious injury, but they don't feel the bodily pain until later on, after all of that mental rambling is back, and then it goes to like, oh my God, their bodily attachments return. So this is one example of how, if we are really fully engrossed in serving the Lord with every action, word, and deed, and service is ultimately love. If we do like this, then actually we can transcend so many forms of miseries. Even by other beings. I'm learning now. There's always different living beings trying to enact their own desires over my desires. And I'm learning, though, that, ultimately my desires are not the end-all be-all. And that ultimately the Supreme Lord might have desires, and it may come through the form of another's desire. And many times, if I'm submissive to that desire, we should not be submissive to evil desires. We should understand what are the conclusions, what are the highest desires that the Bhagavatam, for instance, is propounding. But that there is other possibilities other than my desires. And if I line up my desires with the Lord's desires and try and serve the Lord, then I can always be happy. And there really can be no miseries by other living beings. And the same with miseries of natural catastrophes. If we understand this is also part of the Lord's plan, He has a higher desire here. And in service to the Lord, we can be free from that misery as well. It's actually amazing. Here it's explained. As soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming a servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. Encumbrances, I think, are disturbances, inconveniences, but feel free to look it up. Part of your dictionary. Service is nice. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, we're going to try and finish this today. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Sri Vyasadeva. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life through the mercy of Narada. He's a great teacher. He's a great personality. Sri Vyasadeva is the authorized incarnation of Narayan, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. He is the author of all other Vedic literatures, yet he recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavatam above all others. So he authored all the Vedic literatures. He's a divine personality. And his work of Srimad Bhagavatam was his final work and his most important work. This is the best one. This is going to give you the highest type of thing, the purest thing. In other Puranas, there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigods. But in the Bhagavatam, only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are the different parts of that body. Consequently, by worshiping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Purana and distinguishes it from all other Puranas. Remember we did in the intro the life and pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this was what he propounded for everyone to follow this Bhagavatam philosophy. The proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize the transcendental message. You have to hear it from at least a neutral position. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This word is shushrushu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. So that's really all it is. If you desire to hear this message, you can hear it. But if you are looking to challenge it or compete with it or try and prove it wrong, you'll never be able, because your own biases will stop you. Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunate people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversations, like the news and television, gossips, all these things. But when invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant, hesitant. I don't know about that. Sometimes professional readers of the Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topics of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interpret as sex literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this shloka. One becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. So the fact that maybe you're listening, only after many good things done can you actually become qualified to hear this. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message. This is like a completely transcendental, the topmost type of person, a Paramahamsa. Like a Hamsa swan, and Parama is like the ultimate. Like a swan is also known for being like peaceful and regal, and so we can reach this Paramahamsa platform simply by agreeing to receive this message. So Parth, do you agree? Good. So Paramahamsa is guaranteed for us as long as we, he said the process is simple, but the actual application is difficult. We have to hear submissively and then try and apply, and we will find success. So again, I'll read it. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. I mean, it's not about, dear Lord, I want to hit this baseball, or dear Lord, I want my career, or dear Lord, I need this house, or this partner, or this thing, or this thing. This is not proper religion. I mean, this is not the topmost religion. This is of a lower nature. But we're going for the highest truth. That's what Bhagavad Purana propounds, the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion, for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. No more miseries in this truth. This beautiful Bhagavatam, and I'm actually experiencing this. I had what would be some very miserable situations happen these past few days. But I've been trying to see the absolute hand and truth of it. And actually, there was an experience recently where most people would be very disturbed. And I initially was very disturbed because I wasn't seeing it from the highest truth. But as it played out, and I really kind of had to surrender to the Lord in the midst of it, I was seeing how perfectly the Lord was interacting everyone with everyone else. And it was just... It really gave me like a transcendental pleasure I could never describe, which would normally be a very traumatic situation. And if I was not in a proper consciousness, absolutely I would have taken it in a very traumatic way. But ultimately it really gave me like a kind of like a transcendental ecstasy in so many ways. And I just experienced this myself. So such truth, it will uproot the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. This is the only thing you actually need for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively, are you attentive, Parth? And submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. So I hope this culture of knowledge of the Supreme Lord is established within your heart, and that you are able to attentively and submissively hear this message. We will continue on. Verse 2 is complete. Only 17,998 more verses to go. But don't worry, it goes a lot quicker. These are all being explained. These are some fundamental verses. At one point we'll be able to do 3, 4, 5 verses per class because of it'll be more in story mode. But right now it's very philosophical, explaining many important concepts. So, without further ado, thank you again, Hare Krishna, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll end here. And I wish you a pure in heart moving forward. And I hope you get to attentively and submissively hear the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.